for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention. A kingdom for a stage, princes to act, and monarchs to behold the swelling scene. Then should the warlike Harry, like himself, assume the port of Mars, and at his heels, leashed in like hounds, should famine, sword, and fire crouch for employment. But pardon gentles all the flat, unraised spirits that hath dared on this unworthy scaffold to bring forth so great an object. Can this cockpit hold the vasty fields of France? Or may we cram within this wooden O the very casques that did affright the air at Agincourt? Oh, pardon, since a crooked figure may attest in little place a million, and let us, ciphers to this great account, on your imaginary forces work. Suppose within the girdle of these walls are now confined two mighty monarchies, whose high upreared and abutting fronts the perilous narrow ocean parts asunder. Piece out our imperfections with your thoughts. Into 1,000 parts divide one man, and make imaginary puissance. Think, when we speak of horses, that you see them, printing their proud hoofs to the receiving earth. For 'tis your thoughts that now must deck our kings, harry them here and there, jumping o'er times, turning the accomplishment of many years into an hour-glass. For the which supply, admit me, chorus to this history, who prologue-like your humble patience pray, gently to hear, kindly to judge our play. There is a book called Political Shakespeare, written by two gentlemen called Jonathan Dollimore and Alan Sinfield. This was a book which I was first introduced to in 1986 by a great director who died 2 years ago nearly now, Michael Bogdanov. We were about to embark on the history cycle from Shakespeare. We finally did Richard II, 2 Henry IVs, Henry V, 2 Henry VIs, and Richard III. But I remember on the first day of rehearsal, Michael held up this book and said, "This is our Bible." Now he believed, Dollimore and Sinfield clearly believed, that Shakespeare works through the words, yes, but by getting the political and cultural context of the world in which they take place correct. If you put them in the right place, it works. For instance, Romeo and Juliet will only work if you believe, can believe, or are unable to believe that the Capulets and the Montagues want to wipe each other out. You can only buy into Romeo and Juliet if you can be asked to believe that it is a world of capitalism, where fathers own daughters. At the end of Romeo and Juliet, and it's something which is often missed, after the fathers and the families discover the two dead bodies of Romeo and Juliet, one of them says, I can't remember which way around it is now, "I'm going to erect a statue of pure gold to your child." And the other father says, "I'm going to erect an even bigger one for your child." And you kind of go, they've not learnt anything, have they really? Not really. Now, it has been my experience, such as it is, that that is certainly how the plays work. Getting that context right. And if you get that power structure right, who has the power? Where does it work? Who's affected by it? The play works, and I don't have to do anything with the words, but just say them, but within that context. Now, one of the things that Michael was very clear on was the legacy that Mrs. Thatcher left us. I'm sorry if there's any conservatives here, but there we go. Harry Hotspur in Henry IV Part 1, the son of the Earl of Northumberland, has been summoned to London by Henry Bolingbroke to account for the fact that he's not rendered up his prisoners following the Battle of Holmdon. Now, you kind of think, oh, that's all right, he sent for him, that's all right. Michael Bogdanov pointed out that he's been asked him to ride 200 miles to come and explain himself. And he likened that very much to the kind of what had happened to the North East under Margaret Thatcher. That actually everything that happens in London and the people up there will do our bidding, and if they don't have any money, tough. Sorry, I mustn't get political. But therefore, Michael was absolutely clear that we should use regional accents. Therefore, I'm now going to render the role of Hotspur with a Geordie accent, in case you wonder what on earth I am doing. But I do it out of respect, tribute, love for what is clearly one of the greatest Shakespearean directors, incredibly underrated, Michael Bogdanov. And this is for you, Michael. Okay. My liege, I did deny no prisoners. But I remember when the fight was done, when I was dry with rage and extreme toil, came there a certain lord, neat and trimly dressed, fresh as a bridegroom, and his chin new reaped showed like a stubble land at harvest home. He was perfumed like a milliner. Atwixt his finger and his thumb he held a pouncet box, whichever and none he give his nose, who being angry when he next came there took it in snuff. And still he smiled and talked. And as the soldiers bore dead bodies by, he called them untaught knaves, unmannerly, to bring a slovenly unhandsome course betwixt the wind and his nobility. With many holy day and lady terms he questioned me, amongst the rest demanded those prisoners in your majesty's behalf. I then, all smarting with my wounds being cold, to be so pestered with a popinjay, out of my grief and my impatience, answered neglectingly, and all not what he should or he should not, for he made me mad to see him shine so brisk and smell so sweet and talk so like a waiting gentlewoman of guns and drums and wounds, God save the mark, and telling me the sovereignest thing on earth was Parma City for an inward bruise, and that it was great pity, so it was, this villainous saltpetre should be digged out the bowels of the harmless earth, which many a good tall fellow had destroyed so cowardly. And but for these vile guns, he would himself have been a soldier. This bald, unjointed chat of his, my lord, I answered indirectly, as I said. And I beseech you, let not his report come current for an accusation betwixt my love and your Our Majesty. So, now, Another king. But this time, if Shakespeare loves his heroes, his Hotspurs, and even his Hals, who you can see in that light, how tenderly he also deals with the gentler heroes. King Henry VI, who, a saintly man, is the wrong man in the wrong job at the wrong time. Queen Margaret, at one point, I remember in the history plays, says, "I wish the College of Cardinals would elect him Pope," because she has to take over the army, and that's how she sees him. And at this point, Henry has withdrawn from a battle and is watching from a hill and starts to ponder what his own kingly state, and laments that state. Oh, God, methinks it were a happy life to be no better than a homely swain, to sit upon a hill as I do now, to carve out dials quaintly point by point, thereby to see the minutes how they run. How many hours makes the hour complete? How many hours bring about the days? How many days will finish up the year? How many years a mortal man may live? When this is known, then to divide the times. So many hours must I tend my flock. So many hours must I take my rest. So many hours must I contemplate. So many hours must I sport myself. So many days my ewes have been with young, so many weeks ere the poor fools will ean. So many months ere I shall shear the fleece. So many minutes, hours, days, months and years passed over to the end they were created, would bring white hairs unto a quiet grave. Oh, what a life was this! How sweet, how lovely. Give not the hawthorn bush a sweeter shade to shepherds looking on their silly sheep than doth a rich embroidered canopy to kings that fear their subjects' treachery. Oh, yes, it doth. 1,000-fold it doth. And to conclude, the shepherd's homely curds, his cold, thin drink out of his leather bottle, his wonted sleep under a fresh tree shade, all which secure and sweetly he enjoys, is far beyond a prince's delicates. His viand sparkling in a golden cup, his body couched in a curious bed, when care, mistrust, and treason wait on him. And now, another gentle king, a weak king, you could say, but with the soul of an artist, Richard II. Another book that Michael also used a lot and has become central to my experience, by a man called Jan Kott, Shakespeare, Our Contemporary. And Michael used the image, and this is helpful to us tonight, I think, of the escalator of power that Kott describes. That is, people seeking to get to the top, to trample, he talks about it in Timon of Athens as well, to trample over other people in order to get to the top of the heap. Not far from Thatcherism. It's okay to actually tread on other people to get where you want. It's okay, there's no thing called society, don't worry about it. Just do it. On this escalator of power, though, you get on it and you're heading for the top. And you get up there And maybe you make it to the top without being pushed off. But behind you, there's somebody else coming. And when you get to the top, you topple over. And the next person comes up, and they're there for a bit. They've got the control, and then they go over. That's, again, what Shakespeare is talking about, power. And in the case of Richard II, what do you do if you have a divinely embodied king, the true representative of God on earth, but he's not very good? What do? Do you put up with it, or do you get rid of it? And Henry Bolingbroke, who becomes Henry IV, decides in an incredibly subtle way that nobody could ever accuse him of doing anything wrong. A bit like Michael Gove or something, you know. What, me laying in telephone lines? No, don't be silly. Bolingbroke goes, what, me? No, I don't want the throne. Oh, cool, no. But actually invades with an army in order ostensibly to get his dukedom back, which Richard took off him. And he actually gets to a point where Richard has to take shelter in Flint Castle and knows the game is up. Bolingbroke is the next guy getting to the top of the escalator. And in this, he defies, this speech defies his usurper, Henry Bolingbroke, and finally yields the crown to him. We are amazed! And thus long have we waited to see the lawful bending of thy knee, because we thought ourselves thy lawful king. And if we be, how dare thy joints forget to pay their awful duty to our presence? If we be not, show us the hand of God that hath dismissed us from our stewardship. For well we know, no hand of blood and bone can gripe the sacred handle of the sceptre, but that he do profane, steal, or usurp. And though you think that all as you have done have torn their souls by turning them from us, and we are barren and bereft of friends, yet know, my Master, God omnipotent, is mustering in the clouds on our behalf armies of pestilence, and they shall strike your children yet unborn and unbegot, that lift your vassal hands against my head and threat the glory of my precious crown. Tell Bolingbroke, for yon methinks he stands, that every stride he makes upon my land is dangerous treason. He is come to ope the purple testament of bleeding war, but ere the crown he look for dwell in peace, 10,000 bloody crowns of mothers' sons shall ill become the flower of England's face, turn the complexion of her maid pale peace to scarlet indignation, and bedew her pastures grass with faithful English blood. O God, O God, that ere this tongue of mine that laid the sentence of dread banishment on yon proud man should take it off again with words of sooth, oh, that I were as great as is my grief, or lesser than my name, or that I could forget what I have been, or not remember what I must be now. Swellest thou, proud heart, I'll give thee scope to beat, since foes have scope to beat both thee and me. What must the king do now? Must he submit? The king shall do it. Must he be deposed? The king shall be contented. Must he lose the name of king? For God's name, let it go. I'll give my jewels for a set of beads, my gorgeous palace for a hermitage, my gay apparel for an almsman's gown, my figured goblets for a dish of wood, my sceptre for a palmer's walking staff, my subjects for a pair of carved saints, and my large kingdom for a little grave, a little grave, an obscure grave. Or I'll be buried in the king's highway, some way of common trade, where subjects' feet may hourly trample on their sovereign's head. For on my heart they tread whilst now I live. I'm buried once, why not upon my head? Down, down I come, like glistering phaeton, wanting the manage of unruly jades. In the base court, where kings grow base, to come a traitor's call and do them grace. In the base court come down, down court, down king, for night owls shriek where mounting larks should sing. Alack, why am I sent for to a king? Before I have shook off the regal thoughts wherewith I reigned, I hardly yet have learned to insinuate, flatter, bow and bend my knee, give sorrow leave a while to tutor me to this submission. Yet I well remember the faces of these men. Were they not mine? Did they not sometime cry, "All hail to me"? So Judas did to Christ, yet he in 12 found truth in all but one. I in 12,000, none. God save the King! Will no man say Amen? God save the King! Although I be not here, am I both priest and clerk? Well then, Amen, God save the King, although I be not he. And yet Amen, if heaven do think him me. To do what service am I sent for hither? Give me the crown. Here, cousin, seize the crown. Here, cousin, on this side my hand, and on that side yours. Now is this golden crown like a deep well that owes 2 buckets, filling one another, the umpire ever dancing in the air, the other down unseen and full of water. That bucket down, and full of tears am I, drinking my griefs, whilst you mount up on high. Now, mark me, how I will undo myself. I give this heavy weight from off my head, and this unwieldy sceptre from my hand, the pride of kingly sway from out of my heart. With mine own tears I wash away my balm, with mine own hands I give away my crown, with my own tongue deny my sacred state, with mine own breath release all duteous oaths, all pomp and majesty I do forswear, my manors, rents, revenues I forego, my acts, decrees and statutes I deny. God pardon all oaths that are broke to me, God keep all oaths unbroke that are made to thee. Make me that nothing have, with nothing grieved, and thou withal pleased, that hast all achieved. Long mayest thou live, in Richard's seat to sit, and soon lie Richard in an earthy pit. God save King Harry, unkinged Richard says, and send him many days and years of sunshine days. Nay, all of you that stand and look upon, while that my misery doth bate itself, though some of you with Pilate wash your hands, showing an outward pity, yet you Pilates have here delivered me to my sour cross, and water cannot wash away your sins. Oh, that I were a mockery king of snow, standing before the son of Bolingbroke, to melt myself away in water drops. Good king, great king, and yet not greatly good. And if my word be sterling still in England, let it command a mirror hither straight, that it may show me what face I have, since it is bankrupt of his majesty. Give me the glass. And therein will I read. Oh, no deeper wrinkles yet hath sorrow struck so many blows upon this face of mine, and left no deeper wounds. Oh, flattering glass, like to my followers in prosperity, thou dost beguile me. Was this the face? The face that every day under his household roof did keep 10,000 men? Was this the face that like the sun did make beholders wink? Was this the face that faced so many follies, and was at last outfaced by Bolingbroke? A brittle glory shineth in the face, as brittle as the glory is the face. For there it lies, cracked in 100 shivers. Mark, silent king, the moral of this sport, how soon my sorrow hath destroyed my face. Another political dilemma that Shakespeare faces us with, in the same way, if you have a heavenly connected king, if you like, but he's a bad king, what do? Can you get rid of him? Should you get rid of him? In the same way, in Julius Caesar, we meet a dictator, Caesar, and everyone, well, the inner cabinet, God, there's so many illusions, aren't there? The inner cabinet decide he's got to go. Yeah, there's so many illusions. And Cassius, in particular, is trying to whip up support for a republic and get rid of this man. And now he attempts to tempt the more stoic Brutus to the murder of Julius Caesar. And it's a little like it must be outside the cabinet room. I mean, nobody's actually saying what they think, but it's, don't know what you think, but time she went, really. Nobody's actually coming clean, but this is what Cassius says. I cannot tell what you and other men think of this life, but for my single self, I had as lief not be, as live to be in awe of such a thing as I myself. I was born free as Caesar, so were you. We both have fed as well, and we can both endure the winter's cold, as well as he. For once, upon a raw and gusty day, the troubled Tiber chafing with her shores, Caesar said to me, "Darest thou, Cassius, now leap in with me into this angry flood and swim to yonder point?" Upon the word, accoutred as I was, I plunged in, and bade him follow, so indeed he did. The torrent roared, and we did buffet it with lusty sinews, throwing it aside and stemming it with hearts of controversy. But ere we could arrive at the point proposed, Caesar cried, "Help me, Cassius, or I sink!" I, as Aeneas, our great ancestor, did from the flames of Troy upon his shoulder the old Anchises bear, so from the waves of Tiber did I the tired Caesar. And this man is now become a god. And Cassius is a wretched creature and must bend his body if Caesar carelessly but nod on him. He had a fever when he was in Spain, and when the fit was on him, I did mark how he did shake. 'Tis true, this God did shake. His coward lips did from their colour fly, and that same eye, whose bend doth awe the world, did lose his lustre. I did hear him groan, aye, and that tongue of his that bade the Romans mark him and write his speeches in their books, "Alas," it cried, "give me some drink, Titinius, as a sick girl." Ye gods, it doth amaze me, a man of such a feeble temper should so get the start of the majestic world and bear the palm alone. Why, man, he doth bestride the narrow world like a colossus, and we petty men walk under his huge legs and peep about to find ourselves dishonourable graves. A thoughtful, intellectual man caught in the middle of political corruption, Hamlet, struggling to escape from the web of deceit, disillusion which he's surrounded by, and having just listened to the player king give a rendition of, in effect, an old Greek tragedy, and raise the roof in a Woolfit-like way with what he did. The players leave. Hamlet's been deeply affected by what the player has done, and his passion and his reason are in continual conflict. And having just watched them go, this is what he says. Now I am alone. Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I. Is it not monstrous that this player here, but in a fiction, in a dream of passion, could force his soul so to his own conceit that from its working all his visage wanned, tears in his eyes, distraction in his aspect, a broken voice, and his whole function suiting with forms to his conceit, and all for nothing? For Hecuba. What's Hecuba to him, and he to Hecuba, that he should weep for her? What would he do had he the motive and the cue for passion that I have? Why, he would drown the stage with tears, and cleave the general ear with horrid speech, make mad the guilty and appall the free, confound the ignorant and amaze indeed the very faculties of eyes and ears. Yet I, a dull and muddy-meddled rascal, peak like John a Dreams, unpregnant of my cause, and can say nothing. No, not for a king, upon whose property and most dear life a damned defeat was made. Am I a coward? Who calls me villain, breaks my pater cross, plucks off my beard and blows it in my face? Tweaks me by the nose, give me the lie in the throat, as deepest of the lungs. Who does me this? Ha! Swoons! I should take it, for it cannot be, but I'm pigeon-livered and lack gall to make oppression bitter, or ere this I should have fatted all the region kites with this slave's awful, bloody, bawdy villain, remorseless, treacherous, lecherous, kindless villain! Oh! Vengeance! Why, what an ass am I? This is most brave. That I, the son of a dear father murdered, prompted to my revenge by heaven and hell, must like a whore unpack my heart with words, and fall a-cursing like a very drab scullion. Oh, fie upon foe, about my brains! I have heard the guilty creatures sitting at a play have by the very cunning of the scene been struck so to the soul that presently they have proclaimed their malefactions. For murder that have no tongue will speak with most miraculous organ. I'll have these players play something like the murder of my father before mine uncle. I'll observe his looks, I'll tempt him to the quick. If he but blench, I know my course. This spirit that I have seen may be the devil, and the devil hath power to assume a pleasing shape, yea, and perhaps, out of my weakness and my melancholy, as he is very potent with such spirits, abuses me to damn me. I'll have crowns more relative than this. The play's the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king.